Peace, family. So I'm back with another one. Today what I want to do is I want to talk to my chosen ones about how you were never lost and you didn't have to find yourself. You grew a stronger connection with the source. You grew a much stronger connection with the source. And what kind of drove me into this subject today was, I engage with a lot of people out here, digital world, physical world. But what I realize is when a lot of people are in that in-between phase of being in sunken zombie robot space, not really knowing how to set boundaries, guidelines, etc., a lot of beings feel as though they were lost. If you actually process what's happening when you say you lost or you had to find yourself, it's kind of substituting and it's putting you in a higher position than the creator. What I always understood was if I was lost as a child, if I didn't know myself, how did I operate and stay alive so long? How did I manage to live this many years on this planet, or as many years as I did live until I, was really fully aware of my alignment with the source? How would I know? How would I have survived this long? See, a lot of these witchy spells they putting out here in today's society is to keep everybody confused and to keep everybody feeling as though they are higher than the creator. I'll never put myself higher than the source. I understand like we all could be made in a reflection of the source to a certain degree, but I'm sure the squirrels and the animals can say the same thing, So when you processing things out here and they talking about, you had to find yourself, just think about your childhood. Think about your upbringing. Think about everything that led you into certain spaces, to your biggest obstacles when you first start facing them. One thing about losing yourself and finding yourself, right? If I was lost, I would have never had as much protection. This awareness wouldn't have came so fast. If I didn't know myself, I wouldn't have had as much sauce. I wouldn't have had as many fruits to show that I did have certain principles, morals, and values that I lived by throughout my life, whether I knew that I was doing it or not. We was never lost. They didn't have to find us. They always knew where we was at. That's the crazy thing. Like a lot of people getting into this space saying that they lost, but the opposition knew who you was all along. What happens is they knew who you were. You knew who you was. You just didn't know your team. You didn't know the source as well as you do now. Your connections, your hookups. What happened was as you started growing closer to the source, it's like when you upgrade a computer or something, or like you get a new piece of technology. It's different things you got to start plugging in to do. Depending on how new it is, there's certain things you can start unplugging to make you more connected because it's Bluetooth, you know what I mean? So you just strengthened your connection with the source by doing that. When you think about the other team, the witchy team that does what they do, we all understand like a lot of the tactics that they use. One is it's ill-intentioned, it'd be disgusting and selfish, but for two, a lot of it has to do with survival mode. When you constantly processing things in survival mode, even if you're not in survival mode, you always gonna process yourself first. You're always gonna not look at the consequences, just you looking at the immediate rewards that you get to reap from it, whether it's control, power, some kind of physical 3D item in this realm. But even them, they knew themselves. They knew how to avoid certain feelings. They figured out how to avoid and manipulate certain people's energies and frequencies. They knew. You don't just know these things and not know yourself, because you have to know how to manifest in this reality. That's why a lot of us, when we growing up, we get brainwashed to all the societal programs, and then we just kind of naturally just fall in line and start doing it. It was being programmed onto us. It was just natural part of today's society, which is some of the most unnatural and unhealthy ways that we could possibly be living. But you take it as you take it, depending on how you see the life and light. But we gotta get to a space to stop saying that we lost. Like, for me, I knew I was never a lost being, and I always knew myself, and I always told myself this my whole life growing up. I just always understood that I didn't have a direction. I always knew that I didn't have any guidance. That's where I always understood things at, on the levels that I was on at the time, and as far as being a masculine man. So when I have to, thank you, when I have to process situations like that, and then just trying to reflect back to get a better understanding of, all right, well, I hear these quotes and sayings a lot. If you realize, it's a lot of quotes and sayings that are meant to play on the gray line areas, so that way it's one of them things that's left for open perspective. Everything is not open for perspective. We're in a day and age society where we need more structure from the source and the creator. So it's kind of like playing a basketball game, right? Say you're on the basketball court and you playing a game, and then you have distractions over in the bleachers. You know what I mean? It could be whatever. I don't know what your distractions are. Some people distractions, men's distractions are females. Some others, it could be like maybe somebody brought one of their video games in with them, or maybe it's something else, like some Pokemon or some kind of cards or something. But you wouldn't stop playing in the game where all your energy and focus that and your team is at. You wouldn't stop doing that to go over there and start engaging in the stands with something that's not even pertaining to the game at hand. You would wait till after the game was finished, then you would go over and engage and acknowledge everybody from there. The most we do when we on that court and in the game is, we send the energy in waves. You know what I mean? You wave, you say hi, you acknowledge, head nod, what's up, head nod, how you doing? You know what I mean? Like, these are the things that when you're able to substitute and put things into motion, and you can see from the outside looking in, because I know a lot of times it get hard looking at a lot of situations when you are actually in the middle and you got your energy and motion involved. It does play a big factor on it. But I'm always one of them people, it's like, yo, I don't trust the system. I don't trust you, system. I don't. So for me, I understand a lot of his story that was told, and that's also been shown leading up to where we are today. It's still a lot of things that's happening in today's society that shows that the system don't fuck with none of us like that. None of us. So while you got certain people out here fighting and believing in the system don't care about you. That's why it's working really hard to get you to remove your feelings, to be an NPC, to be a robot, zombie, witch, whatever you want to call it. And if we were so lost, then people wouldn't be coming to us to steal our light. They wouldn't be gravitating towards us to be a part of our essence. It's a lot of things that wouldn't be happening if we didn't know who we were, or if we were lost. You just didn't have your full connection with the source. So I would start removing some of these word spells that they put on us, It gets really overwhelming hearing that people are wanting to fight the system and do different things, but then at the same time, you're using the word spells that the system taught you to use. So you always have to, you don't have to do anything. I correct myself even when I talk to people in real life, because I be trying to give insight, and I be like, you have to do. Nah, you ain't gotta do. You don't have to. But once you're able to see that, all right, it's a handful of word spells right here, right? We already know the system likes to take charge, and they want to lead and have us follow. And it's always going to be something witchy behind it. So if we notice that we're in a day and age of information, all my, tarot readers, age of Aquarius, we understand that when that shift was happening, there was going to be, in the religious world, there was going to be a lot of false prophets. So it shouldn't be a blind eye. It shouldn't be a cheek turn to all of this new nuances that's being brought to the forefront. You don't hear people talking about manifestation as much anymore right now as they was when the transitioning was happening. When it first started happening about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when it first started happening. You don't hear a whole lot of work about it, because I guess a lot of people started trying it and realizing we naturally manifest every day. So when you're working to pull something from the spiritual realm into this physical realm, it requires a lot of focus, time, and energy. A lot of people wasn't looking for that. They was looking for shortcuts. They thinking if they just write this down, meditation, man, I just replace with meditation. Manifestation, manifest. That's like saying, that's what Dorothy do. I wish I was home. That's not how it works. It's people locked up in prison right now saying, I wish I was free. They ass still behind bars. It's a lot of homeless people saying, I wish I had home. They still don't have a home. Everything is a recipe, and it has to go hand in hand together. You know what I mean? So just keep these things in mind. Like, you were never lost. These are people trying to already put you down at the bottom of the totem pole. If you're taking in the word spells that they give you that you were lost, it's going to take you a lot longer to get up. That's like somebody saying, oh, get out of that hole or that water that you're in right now. And you're literally just standing on land. But if you believe the word spells that they're saying, you're going to start flopping around on the water, on the land, like you're in the water. You know what I mean? You're going to be on regular land that don't have a hole or a ditch that you're in, and you're going to be in the process of trying to climb and claw your way out because you allowed them to work their spell, and then you believed it. When you start believing in their spells, that's like turning on the on switch. That's like pressing the power button. You can build a computer, but you really don't have access to it until you turn the power on. You could build a phone, but you don't have access to it until you turn the power on. Once we start believing in the word spells, we're literally activating it for them. We're turning it on for them. Be more mindful about the knowledge and information that you are receiving from everywhere, to be honest, everywhere. But mainly, always keep it above 50% when you're dealing with the system. Keep it above 50%. Everything is on a percentage scale. All right, well, system had told me, Dr. Fauci was talking about this, so now you should question that about 60 to 80%. Even if it's not 90 to 100%, I'm that 90 to 100%. I question everything they do to the highest degree. I don't give a damn if it got my best interests at heart. I don't trust them. So I'm always going to try to figure out, all right, where did they put the poison at this time? Last time I got a loaf of bread, they put the poison in the middle. So I was trying to eat the edges. But this time I went and got a loaf of bread, they put the poison on the crust. So that's literally like, if you don't cut the crust off, that's the first bite that you taking in. We wiser than that. We wiser, we smarter, we more knowledgeable than that. You know what I mean? But I ain't want to run it up too long. I appreciate everybody tapping in, showing a lot of love and support. You know what I mean? I got some things that I'm going to start doing to kind of collectivize and get all of us a lot more involved and get me more involved with engaging with y'all. But I have had some reaching out on Instagram. I told y'all, if y'all reach out on Instagram, send me voicemails. I listen to those more than I will read a 2-hour paragraph. I ain't gonna lie. When I see the 2-hour paragraphs, I'm like, voice call, video chat, audio chat. I like to know that people are real. So if you reach out and you're not an Instagrammer and your account is like suspect, and for new people that want to have longer engagements, because I'm not in a space to where I feel like I want to charge for consultations. I don't like charging for information. Like, we already paying a price by being out here, you know what I mean? So I just always thought that was weird when people said that they wanted to help people and they want to do these things, but then they never took the other ways to figure out how to make their money so that way they can do the helping without charging the people they're helping. That's one of the weirdest spells that is going on out here. Everybody's saying they want to help people, but everybody's putting a price on it. Why don't you put a price on something else? How about you do something else, make the money from it, and while you're helping people, you can do that and give as much energy as light as possible. People charging and overdoing things for courses, like, you helping the people, who don't have as much money, and then you're still charging them for the couple dollars that they do have. And then in our world, we're supposed to be like, that is how business works. Fuck they business strategies. That's the demonic side. I don't have to flow. I am not a fan. Look, I will turn my fork backwards and call it a knife. I'm just one of them people. Like, I never been a co-signer of that. And that would never be the space that I would take up or take in. Because if you really connected with source, and that's really the overall concept, right? Then why would I charge people when the system would already pay me through the YouTube? There's plenty of things you could do to make money through the system and have them financing things, whether you working at the plantations or doing all these other things. But it's like, it's sorcery and it's witchery when you're saying, oh, I'm helping people, but then you're charging people to help them, and then your excuse is, oh, I gotta make a living. You can make it doing something else. That's crazy to me. Somebody barely scrounging around scraping, and then they gotta give their last to you to talk to you. Like, nigga, you ain't God in my books. Yes, we could say we made in the likeness of God, but then I gotta put you at an extremely high space in order to do that. I ain't with none of that. I never follow and believed, no, you need to pay for these courses. Shut the fuck up. We already paying for water. I'm not retarded. I know I do things of, how the system and how us spiritual beings having a human experience indulge and do things, but I still understand the bigger picture. We shouldn't be paying for water, and we do. It's that simple, I ain't want to run it up too long. Tapping everything down below. Peace and love to the kings and queens.